Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. This is the Kubeflow SDK and ML Experience Working Group Community Call on 8th of October. As always, we're going to record this call and we're going to publish on YouTube, and we follow CNCF Code of Conduct. Welcome, everyone. So just before we get started, as always, any new people here on the call, just want to say hello before we get started. Feel free to use the chat or unmute yourself if you want to introduce yourself to the community or just want to say hello. All right, then I guess we can get started. So I think we have a few topics today to talk about around Kale and SDK. So there, I think maybe you can kick off first with Kale, and we can talk about other updates then.
Good morning, everyone. We progressed a lot in Kale, and finally we are able, after like 1 month that we started this or two, to have the front-end branch. And with the help of a bunch of people, we're able to rebase the branch and merge into the main. So we have, besides the backend, also the front-end kind of working, and we can progress to working over the main. And I worked also with William. William, I don't know if you want to speak about your prioritization on the issues.
Yeah, so right now we need to fix the pencil icon. So when you open a notebook, you must add metadata. So KO will be able to parse that metadata to create the Kubeflow pipelines. And that's our more high priority issue at the moment. Once that's fixed, we will be able to fix the examples. And I think we will be close to a release. We still have some minor issues, but the high priority one is dispensing, where it's not allowing the user to edit the metadata of a cell. And that doing it, we will be really close to release.
Is there anyone working on this, William? It's you or Hannah or Adam?
Yeah,
Or...
I'm working on this. I think I'm close. Basically, what happens, technically speaking, is I think when we add the metadata component, we are using the React context. So I'm structuring again this part of the code to see if I can get the React context in sync again. And doing that, I hope that will be fixed. And that is also another minor issue, but it's a one-liner, so not very urgent. But the Pence one is the one that I'm working right now, and I hope to finish in the next days.
Great. Do you want to talk, Stefano, about yours, the next one?
Yeah, on my end, just wanted to highlight that we have some improvements on the back end before cutting Kale 2.0. Well, if you look at the issue, it's pretty much self-explanatory. There's a sort of weird dependency in how Kale needs to detect its own version and then set that version in the KFP workflow that it generates. Because the KFP pods themselves need to install Kale as a dependency to run certain plumbing operations during the pipeline execution. So the pipeline needs a specific version of Kale. The current one, particularly when one compiles a notebook, then KFP needs the latest and current version that the user is using. Currently, it's just hard-coded. There's no dynamic system to do that. I have a bunch of WIP commits in a branch there. I was hoping to work a little bit this week, but I don't think I'll have too much time. Maybe early next week, I'll send a PR for that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only major issue on the backend side that we need to fix before Kale 2.0.
Yeah, we need to gather all the bugs, because probably when we do with fixed examples, I guess more issues we are going to found with the subset, because just testing with one that are meant created originally. And also we need to work on the CI/CD infrastructure to do the release. And this is something that I can help as well, because I did this from other Rusty and other projects. So yeah, but we are progressing. And we have even a few new people, Adam, that is a new, I sent the first pull request on there. And probably on the next week or probably 2 weeks, because this week I was busy with the front-end branch, I will work on the proposal for the front-end stack. Because one thing that was discussed with William is that our React components there were really outdated, the way to write React. So we need to figure out how we are going to tackle with our UI components, and especially around styling, because we have two paths, but we can discuss this when we have written the proposal, because either we go with Jupyter stylist, Alwyn, because this will align us with the Jupyter ecosystem, or we align the Kubeflow components. For instance, if you take Model REST or take other Kubeflow components, they are written in Material UI, so we can embed easily inside in our future extension. So this is an open topic that we need to discuss further later, and I'll create a proposal for us to discuss. Adriel?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so I have one question regarding what Stefano said about the backend. That is, if I understood correctly, when this is compiled, there are a few things that needs to be installed into the pipeline server or something like that. Because we were trying to do some changes in the backend, not in the backend, sorry, in the development environment. So instead of using a local Kubeflow pipelines, we can use some stuff deploying in servers. Usually we have a lot of servers with pipelines deployed, so we want to use that. So I wanted to ask if that is related to, or it may be related to that idea.
Kind of. Talking about the development workflow, it is 100% related, because one issue that I was trying to tackle in the same issue, the same development branch, is what is the experience for a developer when they're building a new feature on Kale, maybe the backend. So they need to kind of publish their own branch somewhere as a PyPy package, because it needs to be consumed by a development instance of Kubeflow pipelines for an end-to-end test. So, like, to be more clear, you develop something new on the Kale backend. Let's say you publish that version as a development version to a test PyPy index. And then you compile the notebook, get published as a workflow, you run it on KFP. KFP runs its own pods. These pods need to pull that development version as a PyPy package, right? For the end-to-end test to happen. So one option, if you're running locally, is to publish that package as a development version to a local PyPy index. It's very easy to set that up. Like there's a specific library that you can use to set up a local, super easy PyPy index. And then with the Python build toolchain, it's all automated. You publish there, KFP can consume it. But if you want to experiment targeting a remote KFP development environment, then I guess it gets trickier, because unless you have your own test PyPy index that environment can pull from, otherwise you gotta use the public test PyPy index, which is a little bit more cumbersome because you need an account, you need to log in. I don't know if there are other options that are easier. But yeah, I guess we can discuss more in the issue as well, about the specific use case.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and it just remind me, Stefano, about the other issue. I had a person in the community approach me that he saw us discussing about Kale, and this person knows front end, but she doesn't have enough machine to run Kubeflow pipelines locally, because the requirements, the amount of the requirements that they need to run the kind cluster. So we need to either figure out how to do a mocked mode or to run
Yeah.
a streamlined version of the Kubeflow pipeline to enable people just to do like small bug fixes on KOI without having to have the Kubeflow pipelines installed.
Yeah. I mean, it is a little bit surprising because running kind and just the base KFP deployment isn't that taxing. But okay, I guess coming up with a kind of a
It's
KFP
like
mock.
20 containers
Yeah.
to run in a local machine.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I mean, I have a very lightweight MacBook Air and it's running fine. So
because if I recall correctly, they have a lighter version of the pipelines, right? That doesn't need to run on kind on the Kubeflow.
maybe.
Yeah, I check this. Yeah, I put on my list to figure out if this is a problem or not and try to identify.
You can also try to disable some of those projects
Yep.
from manifest and only install KFP.
Yeah.
Exactly, because our first or one of their steps is like run Kubeflow as described on the Kubeflow website, and then actually run Kubeflow.
Yeah, I think KFP is like kind of like the biggest one in terms of resource utilization on the control plane. But I think you can disable a knative kserve kdip training operator. You might free some of the resources.
Yep.
But I think I kind of agree with Stefano. Like I don't think you need more than I would say 8 GB of memory to
I
write.
mean, I run KFP directly, like just the KFP manifests on kind. And I don't think it's spun up too many containers.
Yeah, I will ask for this person about her hardware. If its hardware is
Right.
too low,
I mean,
too
if they're
slow or
trying
not.
to run the entirety of Kubeflow, yes, I understand.
Oh yeah,
It's a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
But KFP by itself, it should be fairly lightweight.
I ask more info for this person.
Also,
Yeah, and maybe we
also I
just need to
think
double check our instructions on the
Yeah.
README. Just
yeah,
make sure.
yeah. I installed them, but I didn't realize how much was it taking to do that. But I think we can also double check. I can double check how much is taken from my system to do that.
Mm.
But because I follow the instructions from the page, and I'm not sure what it installed because there were a lot of components there. So let me double check how much I'm using.
Yeah.
Anything else? Wondering like
No.
the timeline and or like
Yeah.
I guess you're still working, right, on the release.
Yes.
I have one question about running on a remote cluster. From what we investigate so far, and no kind of authentication support at the moment. So I wanted to confirm that with Stefano. Is that correct, Stefano?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. So it seems that KO, when it tries to talk to the KFP using the KFP client, it's not using any kind of authentication, and that will require code change to support that, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, that's fine. Just to
Yeah,
confirm. Thank you.
Willie, what you mean is you're running K locally, right? And pointing to a Kubeflow pipeline that's running in a cluster.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
this
we
will
need
require us
authentication.
this will require us to set up some authentication in how Kubeflow works.
Yeah.
It's not straightforward to do
No
this.
problem.
I
I
think
just wanted to
we
make
should
sure.
first target to put inside in Workbench, our regular Workbench. But this indeed could be a feature for the future. The things like every type of authentication will be different, and we have issue and have all this type of stuff. We need to do. It's not easy. In short,
Yeah.
there is some workarounds like copy the token and paste the token in the header, but it will not work around for the user. So it not be easy for the user, straightforward.
Yeah, I noticed that from Elira because Elira has a lot of authentication options. So I was wondering how to do that.
was curious, like either like if we can do something before KubeCon or like you think it will be after.
I think it'll be
to-
after. It'll be after Kubeflow.
So we
November,
can
right?
Mm-hmm. Because we're gonna have like maintainer session. I'm wondering if we want to have any updates and shout outs to this work stream.
For sure, Ken. For sure. If you can talk about work in progress, if Stefano agree and Stefano and myself can join, it will be super nice because we can do a demo already. I thought for talking about a release before Kubecon, we will not have a release, but talking about in the maintainer session would be super cool if you have this opportunity.
Yeah, maybe having at least the like the proposal we can link to that would be helpful. But
Yeah,
I guess you need
we
to
can
work.
have videos as well.
I mean, I'm talking about proposal for transfer to Kubeflow organization.
Oh, this we can do.
Yeah, like I think that would be nice to link it to the maintainer track, maintainer session.
Yeah.
Do you think either like you can work it before KubeCon on this?
Yes,
Maybe just
definitely.
high level,
No, definitely I can work on this. Definitely.
Right.
This suddenly become a higher priority for me and Stefano. I think,
Yeah.
right, Stefano? When you have this,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anything else so we can move on?
Nope.
Sounds great. Great progress, guys. Really exciting for
Thank
this. Yeah.
you.
Abri, go ahead.
So about the installation stuff, in my setup, I've got a kind cluster, just one container, and I've installed a KFP, not the entire Kubeflow. It works pretty fine for me on a kind cluster. Okay, but when I was installing Kserve, different thing, that was a bit of a hassle for me installing 20 containers and stuff. But for Kubeflow pipelines, it was pretty easy.
Yeah, I double check with this person and ask how it's installing. Or
Yeah,
maybe it's
so
our instruction.
no, because actually, if you are just installing one container, that is a different way of installing that is expressed in the README, because I install it and install like a bunch of things around that. So maybe it's installing a lot of things that are not needed for KFP. It installed a bunch of stuff, like I don't know, 6, 7
Right.
deployment files and stuff like that.
Right. Because I just use the standalone deployment for KFP. Worked pretty fine for me. But yes.
Let's follow up on this because probably it's the README. I'm reading because I know that is under his personal talked about having the. Yeah, let's review this offline. I will put on my list.
Yeah, definitely. Feel free to, ask Julius as well. I think that he has a lot of knowledge around this, so he can help you, Amrit, if you need any help on this. All right, so just to move on, I think we have a few topics that I talk about SDK. So maybe before we jump to this proposal, Latanya and myself prepared for HPO, talk about release. So we're planning to have another release before KubeCon, like 0.2. I kind of like on the fly created this tracking issue for us, so we can at least track up pending items. So I think the goal is to add more support for hyperparameter tuning, and also probably support Docker backend, but it really depends on maintainer's availability. Is there any do I have any kind of big issues I'm missing here? So the thing is, I identify it's HPO, this publishing for KTIP modules to support HPO options. That's like really exciting things we're working on to support kind of more integration with KFP. The cache work that actually is working on, and we applying to release cache also before KubeCon. So it'll be a huge announcement, and I think definitely like SDK is kind of experience, like we'll give user, easy experience to use this cache. So it's definitely will be there. And other things, just, like LoRa support for build data trainer also, I think very important for us to push forward. Anything else I'm missing in terms of painting items? Yeah, go ahead, Anya.
Yeah, what do you think about having more incremental releases for Kubeflow SDK? For example, we could release before this HPO work, we could release 0.2 release for for example, options and then LoRa config or whatever we will have implemented. And then we could also do release for like local execution mode, right after that, HPO, etc. So like make more frequent releases rather than, such a big release and waiting for all of this stuff implementation. Because I think like, for example, options are the good ones that should be quite straightforward too.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think like I think we discussed before in terms of kind of having monthly releases, and I understand like from the work amount, HPO might be a big thing, but I think as I said before, I definitely can help with the implementation to at least have initial support. But like incremental releases definitely make sense to me. I just was thinking about we should definitely release before KubeCon, which means like in the next month we should have it there somehow.
Yeah, I was hoping like that we could have, for example, at least 2 releases before KubeCon. For example, like one release in the next few weeks and then one just before KubeCon. That makes sense.
I kind of like my expectation if we agree on the proposal that the implementation of HPO HPO will be there next week.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I can
Yeah.
definitely help with that since I don't think it's a lot of, amount of work. But like the thing is like if we kind of agree to have more than one release per month, that might confuse users. I mean, if you have like, like stable release cadence is every month, that will at least give user, visibility what we're working on. But at the same time, I agree with you, what if 0.3 we have less features? So how to balance it is it's the open question.
Okay. Yeah, we can see as we go. If we will have HPO sooner, then I guess we can cut the release and then, for example,
Yeah.
local execution mode we could put in the third release, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Even Docker backend, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Docker backend, I mean, we can never talk about it, but kind of like less priority because we don't going to show it in the KubeCon. So for the KubeCon, like because HPO must be there, probably we should be focusing on this and release it as fast as we can. And also like this LoRa config and the cache support, which quite straightforward. Like I mean, these two is very straightforward. HPO might require more work, but we should have it before KubeCon. So in that case, do you want me to remove this Docker backend execution backend from the milestone?
I mean, I don't mind having it in the second release. It depends on how quickly we'll move forward with that. I guess it's already implemented. It's a matter of reviewing this PR.
Yeah.
So if we'll just review that, I think it's okay to include
Yeah,
that.
no.
It depends on how much time it will take to like, address the feedback and then review that.
Do we have Fiona on the call here right now?
And Brian as well, yeah.
Um, So what is your kind of perspective on this? Like, do you think we can finish it before KubeCon, or we kind of want to postpone it and then 0.3 in November sometime?
Like I am working on it at the moment, so I can have a PR with what we talked about on this PR like in the next couple of days, hopefully. And we can get it reviewed and maybe decide then. But I'm not going to take a long time to do it. I'll do it as quickly as I can.
Yeah, fine.
Just a note on that. I guess we should first review the Docker backend, which Brian has implemented, right? Because it depends on that one, and then we'll merge this Podman.
Yeah, Anya, so there's been kind of some discussions around that. So we're going to do one implementation for both rather than separate implementations.
Okay.
Yeah, like we need to kind of, yeah, go ahead.
No, I knew that we will have like but I thought that we'll have that in different PRs, or do you will just keep it in one PR?
Yeah, I guess it's a question to you, Brian. If you want, do you want to like kind of combine them?
Yeah, I chatted with Fiona earlier. I think we thought it made more sense to have it in a single PR. So, correct me if I'm wrong there, Fiona. I think you were just going to take take the code from mine and just blend it into one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess we can close the older one then and use the newer one.
Yeah, I guess like like the main refactoring we should do kind of combining them to single container backend and allow people to switch between those runtimes, container runtimes. Docker and Podman. Yeah, and then I guess we need to separate clients, right? Because from my understanding, Podman and Docker they are different clients, correct?
Yeah.
Mhm. That makes sense. I think, I mean, definitely, I mean, we kind of need to kind of balance like what users want at the same time. We want to kind of like have all these cool features being there regularly, which means like if we put a lot of things in 0.2, 0.3 would have less. Uh, but I think overall, like having kind of stable release cadence, it's a good thing. I think for the SDK kind of stability and for the user awareness and like giving them more things like every month, it's a good thing for us. So I mean, if we kind of agree to postpone, I'm okay with that. It's like at least to November or 0.3 release, but let's see how it goes.
Regarding those improvements for integration with pipelines, it feels like it was a big issue to include in the second release, but I'm not sure what else Matt is looking for implementation, right? I think his last comment is that we could adopt wait for job status, but there isn't else like options. Implementation would cover his needs. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't really know what's the
Yeah, I think like just to keep aware, like so this issue basically help us to have more integration with KFP, like how we can use Trainer Cloud within KFP and what are the gaps in today, in our existing SDK. And it's like we've done some progress to improve this integration. So definitely let's maybe ping Matt here on this issue to ask, hey, like we have this pending, working PR, and while we merge it, like is it sufficient for all the pending items he has in mind? Maybe it's a good thing to follow up with him so that then we can close it and maybe create more kind of small tracking issues moving forward. So we know what we need to work on in the future. Yeah,
Yep.
so
That's great.
do you want to ping Anya like Matt in this thread to ask if this is sufficient to close this issue?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
Yeah, I think like one of the discussions also around documentation was wondering if we want to have this somehow in 0.2 or we want to postpone it.
Good question. I'm not sure if I have much time to take on this one right now. If there's anyone on the call who is willing to work on that for like the next few weeks, then yes. If not, I could look at that maybe after KubeCon.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's definitely see if we have any contributors who want to pick this up. Yeah, in general, like, we already have some pending PRs that, you just need to take a look and adopt this Sphinx. I think we were using Sphinx before to auto-generate docs. But if you want to work on this, maybe I can mark this as, it's a good first issue for those who want to, help us with that. For contributors. Sounds great. Any other like pending items, like in terms of prioritization, we should do? Maybe I'm missing something. I know like there are a lot of things we should improve in terms of like test coverage, etc. Maybe it's a good thing, maybe just to if you kind of like identify something which is missing, maybe create a tracking issue and mark this as a good first issue. I know we have like a bunch of students and new contributors who want to be involved in the project, and usually like because they maybe want to in the GSOC 2026 and they want to help us, so it's a good thing to create those issues so we can mark them and at least attract more developers here. If you know some like important PR or features we need to work on, we need to have a help with. Yeah, let me mark this as a docs. Yeah, so okay, so sounds great. Any other things on the 0.2 release we need to talk about? All right. So it sounds great. So again, let's move on. Like, so we again planning to have this before KubeCon. We're planning to support a lot of different, many new features there. So definitely, there'll be a lot of exciting demos to show in the during the sessions. Yeah, so I'm probably like in the next 20 minutes, I maybe like want to talk about this proposal and like what we end up with and what we're looking for the feedback for. Um, yeah, so first of all, just to give like like the I think we discussed this like in 2 weeks ago and also the trainer call. We're trying to support HPO within Kubeflow SDK, and we try to make it very simple for users to train their jobs and also optimize hyperparameters. And I think the goal of this proposal is to uh, kind of first of all give a user experience of using new client but using KTIP control plane. So because like KTIP was already supporting hyperparameter optimization, but right now KTIP has its own SDK, and we don't really want to migrate this KTIP SDK because it doesn't support train jobs. So we try to design a new way how people can submit those optimized hyperparameters with a new client. I still kind of like trying to collect feedback from scientists, especially on this proposal design. But looking forward to discuss, on this call, if there are any kind of improvements or, or other optimizations we could do for the SDK design. I also kind of like looking for feedback from KDIP users. If you know anyone who is using KDIP in production or using this for hyper optimization, we need their feedback, especially on this kind of no goals for the long-term support. Um, so if you know anyone who using KDIP or been using this before and looking for for the future of this project, please ask them to take a look at this proposal because we need to gather their feedback on what we are not going to support for the long term. This is very important, like because if you depend on this feature and if you need this feature, let us know as soon as you can. I probably won't go like right now because I already like done this before, but just to keep you aware. Yeah, so just to give you like a short like idea, like what we're planning to do. I think I just draw this simple diagram for like taking this diagram for KDIP and try to actually explain users what actually will happen behind the scenes when when users are doing the optimization job. So the goal is like to again give user functionality to optimize hyperparameters. An optimization job will be the new CRD, not right now, but in the future, which will spawn these trials, and the trials will create the train jobs, and train jobs will be able to use run the training using job set or using job set with MPI, or in the future maybe using even Slurm when we support like Slurm based runtimes. So there are kind of a lot of opportunities how those train jobs can evolve to support kind of more complex CRDs. And I think that is why I kind of hesitate to support non-train job CRDs within optimization job. But this is open up to the discussion, like whether trials should be able to orchestrate other CRDs. We can talk about it later. And in terms of API design, like we end up with, so this is the simple API for training, like how trainer client we use it today. So we have like simple API called train, which allows us to create train jobs, and the user can pass the function, like the function arguments, some initializer, like from which location they want to initialize the model or data set, and which runtime they want to use. And runtime is like a template the platform engineers is pre-configured for scientists. So this is the design kind of like we been brainstorming right now, and I'm open to like to any discussion. Feel free to raise your hand or ask any follow-up questions. So the goal is to first of all find a name. So the name right now is kind of like what we probably thinking about is called optimizer, because like optimizer is like very easy to understand. It's kind of like the optimization problem, and probably we're gonna have simple to train. We're gonna have optimize API, and like transition from training to optimizing looks like this. So you kind of like define the objective, like what you want to optimize, and define the trial. And inside trial, you want to say how many trials you want to run in parallel, and what is the template you want to use for the trial. Here you can see you have exactly the same template you used for training, but you kind of like say, like you could kind of defining search space within this custom trainer what you want to optimize. Like in this particular example, I want to optimize learning rate. I want to optimize number of epochs. So one question like I'm gonna have like here before I kind of move on, like, does this completions API make sense for scientists? or it's kind of too complex to understand because completions and parallelism is the concept from job, like from job API. I was wondering if there are any kind of feedback on this, proposal, or make it clear for them, like what does completions mean here. Um, yeah, maybe like, is an alternative, like, the completions and parallelism, we can use some sort of, max trial count and like parallel trial count. But I don't know, like if we can, if that makes sense. Like, any feedback, maybe like Antonin or Anya, like, do you have any thoughts on this? If this, if trial spec API makes sense to you as of now, what we have right now. Yeah.
You mean max trial count? Why is it max? Don't we just always use this number?
Yeah, so there are three parameters we should set. So the first one, how many trials we want to run before stop and a job, and how many of them we want to run in parallel, and how many of them we can tolerate to fail. So there are three parameters. And the max trial count, before we identify like how many trials the experiment needs to run before it will complete. That is why I use completions API here. It was one because completions API is kind of like what we use for job API today. Was wondering if that makes sense for trial spec as well. Like,
I think like it makes sense to me. However, I might take a look and see what other alternatives we might consider as well. But for now, yeah, it makes sense to me.
yeah, because this is like, the API, how it looks like with number of nodes. So train job, so here in this example, train job spawns 2 nodes, and in total we run 10 trials, and 2 of them will run in parallel. So 2 trials run 2 train jobs, and every train job will spawn 2 nodes. Which means like, this parameter identify the parameter for trial, this parameter is identified for how many pods we want to run per train job, how many nodes basically. Yeah, I will ask, some scientists to give their feedback on this, but if that makes sense, we can just stick with that. So that will make us consistent with the job API, which is a good thing, at least from the Kubernetes perspective. All right, so just if we move on here, so this is the extended version. In addition to objective, user can set like algorithm they want to use to perform optimization. Like it could be random search, Bayesian optimization, or CMS, anything we support. And they can also specify the trial spec here. So this is again like how this transition to the KTIP experiment. This is actually what happening behind the scenes. So we will create this experiment CRD, which will have the objective, the algorithm, the parallel trial counts, and the parameters like a search space, and the trial spec. So as we can see in the trial spec, we have this train job where we define this function, and it has these parameters where we define a search space, like learning rate and number of epochs. So this is what we have initially, as of now, like what executive experiment will be created. Potentially we can, use this kind of new CRD, but in the future when we want to, implement this new API called like maybe optimization job. So let me maybe ask you like a question.
Andre,
Yeah, go ahead.
so Andre, so you mentioned about optimization CRD, right? So in the first phase, we're not implementing it, and we're
Yeah,
directly using experiment CRD, which is already existing.
Yep, that's correct. So initially we will just use experiment CRD, but user will not, they don't need to know anything about it. It's fully internal. But yes, behind the scenes, we will create this experiment CRDs and trial CRDs.
And the API, the API which we have with GitHub, are we using it right now? And is this the SDK chain which we're doing for this version?
Yeah. There are no really changes required on the KTIP experiment API side. I kind of like thinking about transition this, SDK to experiment. using these new kind of parameters that we need to decide.
Got it. And let's say if we introduce the optimization CRD, what would be the changes on the API spec?
Yeah, you mean like or like how we're going to like this will be completely new API, right?
Yeah, on the SDK side, here instead of SDK submitting creating experiments, you would create optimizations here. Is it?
Yep. Yeah. So
The
there will be no SDK changes at all. Like this is what I expect into. There will be no changes. Like the only change we do in SDK is create optimization job instead of experiment CRD.
I see.
Yeah, that is why I try to keep this spec as close as possible to the SDK. So you can see here we have objective. It's a list algorithm. It's also objective, algorithm, search space, and trial spec. And the trial spec will like this parallelism, completion, and max restarts API. And this is the template I'm using right now.
So when we have the optimization API, what would the controller perform? It would create the same experiments.
No. We need to create a new controller. We need to create a new optimization job controller, which will
replace the experiment controller.
Yeah. We kind of like in the future we need to kind of replace all those controls with a new one, and we need to design the whether we need, for example, a suggestion controller. So for example, KTP right now has 3 controllers, which is the experiment, trial, and suggestion. And we need to, at some point, talk about whether that makes sense for us in the long term. To use the same architecture as we did here.
Makes sense. Sounds good. Yeah.
One of the open topic, for example, like initialization, and maybe we can talk about it after I go over this proposal. But it's still unclear to me where initialization API will live. Initializer, sorry.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. If we can have the API integrated with the optimization controller, that would make sense. Because there we would need not have the initializer step in the runtimes. Remove it in the runtimes.
Yeah, I think the trick is there with initializer, and like the problem that we're talking about. So today, so trainer client today support initializer, and like the initializer, basically the goal is to allow users to specify location to the dataset or model they want to pre-initialize before they start training. And initializer, so if when a user want to use initializer, this initializer must exist in the control in the runtime. So for example, there is no way to use this initializer on SDK if runtime doesn't have the initializer. One of the examples is TorchTune. So in TorchTune, we have this replicated job called dataset initializer and replicated job model initializer, which allow users to use this initializer API on SDK. Otherwise, there is no way for users to use initializer.
Makes sense.
Does make sense for everyone, like what I'm talking about? Because I haven't been like exploring initializer at all in the trainer yet. So the problem that we see on the optimization side, like your controller, your runtime, since it must have initializer, there is no way for us to only do initialization for the first trial. That's why it's
I think it makes sense. I think probably for the optimization job, probably we should relax some of those requirements. I think we should, because even if you have initializer step before starting off the train jobs, it might become more tricky because we'll need to, even with the cache or without cache, we'll need to make sure that we have the same mounts being applied to all the jobs.
Yeah, like one of the question I might want to ask, do we want to support initializers without, so do we want to allow users to specify initializer if initializer is not been set on a runtime? So for example, like do we want to support the train job which allows us to set the initializer when runtime doesn't have initializers?
That makes sense to me because like for users who want to have some initializers, we need to have multiple runtimes, one for dataset initializer, one for model initializer, and one for both of them, right? So that will have allow data scientists to have like flexibility.
Yeah, I think the problem with that approach is that if we don't have a template where we're going to define volume, for example, or image or other parameters.
Isn't it something we can cover with the options?
Yeah, but that will force users to use options then.
Which is okay, which is the idea of options, no?
Yeah, so I think the question is like we should probably answer whether like you want to support. Yeah, it's kind of a tricky one. Like because like I guess like so your point is like we want to support we want to allow users to specify initializer from the train job, even though the runtime doesn't have initializer, but users will have to be responsible to, create that, to use options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think like so we might need to have these changes in the controller in that case because the controller doesn't allow us right now to. So I'm talking about train job controller. It doesn't allow us to kind of create a spec without initializers being on the template.
But I mean,
Yeah, I think there should be some changes on that front. Yeah.
I mean, that's not something we have to do right now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe for some of the next releases, we could discuss this.
It kind of like a more like a long-term
Yeah.
long-term question. Like, do we want to allow people to set initializer without initializer being on a template? Because then I guess like we need to make sure, like volumes are unique and volumes needs to be kind of pre-created, for example, because we don't support stateful job set. So we work on this in the job set cap, but it's not been there yet. So volumes needs to be kind of pre-created. Also, like user needs to ensure the image is correct here, etc. So shall we maybe like on this point, can someone create an issue in a trainer repo to, in terms of shall we allow users to set initializer when template doesn't have initializers? Maybe something like this. And maybe we can iterate with trainer maintainers and as well, so they can give a feedback on this. What do you think?
Yeah, makes sense to me. I can create the issue if you want.
Antonio, since you're here, like, what are your feedback on this? Like, does it make sense to you or?
Yes, so I would need to, I'll be honest, I would need to give a bit more cycles to it. So hopefully I can do that by the end of this week. And I'll comment on the document if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. It's more about like asking about, if you want to give any feedback on this idea of allow train job to configure initializers without forcing to have this on a template. And we can follow up on the issue if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think overall it's a good idea. I just like I think there are some caveats, like in terms of volumes management and image, correct image, and some of those parameters kind of Kubernetes specific, like node selectors, etc. So it maybe makes sense to use options overall, like if we provide the good instructions for users how to use, because maybe volumes would make sense for them to say, hey, like I use this volume for like my dataset initializer, my model initializer, etc. So yeah, and we can maybe hard code some of those values, like for example, mount path like workspace must be there. So and other things. So for this, let me make it to do. So let's create an issue for this, and I can definitely also ping some maintainers and give my feedback there. Support. Yeah, the cluster training concept template. Makes sense. Anything else here? So again, like I'm collecting feedback from scientists to try to see whether that makes sense for them, like this new API. So the more important thing is here is this API. And I know there are some alternatives to use Builder, for example. Like I know Sad has been proposing some of those interesting, ideas of using optimization Builder. and just just adding like the trial policies, Hugging Face initializer, runtime. Was wondering like what are your perspective? Do you want to support both eventually, or?
I mean, this builder, it's not an alternative, right? It's just another way of how to do that, the optional way, which is built on top of the API. Am I right?
Yeah, it's kind of instead of like asking users to specify everything as a parameter, just allow them to use these methods to add, some things on top, like trial policy, Hugging Face initializer, runtime.
I mean, overall, it's like a good idea to add this builder for both train jobs and trainer client and optimizer client, so we can optionally provide
Yeah,
it for users depending on their preferences.
yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, I kind of like, I mean, I think my only question is transition from this train API to optimize API would look simpler to you, or it's kind of too complex, especially this trainer trial template that we introduce here. I think this is probably what we want to understand. I think also like another problem that we do have with built-in trainers. So I think I mentioned this before, but built-in trainers. So this is how like the API might looks like for this Torchstone trainer, where user doesn't need to define the training loop. They just use kind of predefined fine-tuning script for us, and they just directly use this in built-in trainer. The problem is with that approach. So you will have to. So there is no way to collect metrics from these built-in trainers, which means for now, for me, it's unclear how we're going to push metrics from the Torchstone script back to Katib DB without using pool-based metrics collector. I was wondering if you have any ideas here, or like we still need to use pool-based metrics collector for that. So yeah, like the problem that I was talking about, like like the KTP, I mean, like it needs to collect the metrics from the train jobs, and by metrics I mean accuracy or loss or like perplexity, any metrics user wants to report, and like this collection, like we have two ways of collecting the metrics. So the first one is using push-based metrics collection when users specifically define the report. Let me show you report metric API within their script. So it looks like this. So it's inside their function they define katib.report metrics, and they push the result metric to katib.db.
Andrew, if you're sharing your screen, I think we're not seeing.
Yeah, sorry, 1 second.
I could see that, but okay. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, can you see now?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Like I think like the question is like the push metrics, this is the push-based metrics collection, but in the pool-based metrics collection, user doesn't need to do anything. We just have a sidecar container which is parsing the std out output, and if you have the specific format of how metrics has been printed to the output, we will then report them all the way to the katib.db. So the problem is because in built-in trainers we don't have access to the script. There is no way for user to report metrics. Which means like for me right now it's unclear how we can support built-in trainers without pool-based metrics collection. Does it make sense? Like I don't know, like maybe we can do the second iteration and support built-in trainers, like and see how we can iterate on this, if that makes sense. Yeah, Anthony?
A quick comment, not to provide a proper answer to your question, but it looks like to me that the topic about being able to retrieve the metric from the across different type of trainers and runtime
Yeah.
is also a larger concern beyond just like Katib and hyperparameter optimization, because even for standard training job, like I know we had that request to be able to expose the progress of a single train job, and we did some experimentation, some POCs where we tried to retrieve that and expose that in the status of the train job. But the problem, you're right, like that would be about somewhat standardizing the contract that you've mentioned, like the way for the runtime to expose those metrics in a standardized way. And to me, it feels like it would solve a lot of really interesting use cases in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good point. I think like eventually, pulling some data from training job without, intercepting the script, it's a common problem.
Yeah,
Not only for
exactly.
HPO, for
Yeah,
training as well, right?
absolutely. Yes.
I think if we solve this problem on the trainer side,
Yep,
yeah, that
exactly.
will be super beneficial for everything.
Yeah. And it's true that there is at the moment, it's not clear what would be the like the common solution for any kind of trainers or runtime, let's say it like that.
Yeah, I think that's right. So do we have any tracking issue for this? Like, how to export this?
Yeah, I created one in the trainer about like tracking progress, but it would require maybe a refinement. We can recreate one that's more explicit about standardizing or finding a way to instrument the runtime across different type of trainers.
I'm
basically,
wondering whether,
good.
sorry,
Go ahead.
yeah, I'm wondering whether experiment tracking like email flow integration will be helpful in this case.
Yeah, it's a good point, Anya. You're right. It touches also on that part as well. It's the same to me, kind of how you instrument a training runtime so that it can push all that to the different other part of the integration, like MLflow or the registry, HPO, and even the status of the train job itself, where it would also be useful.
I think eventually, I think MLflow might work, but the problem with MLflow, you still have to define your experiment on the MLflow spec. So because I know that MLflow supports some ability to automatically pull some metrics because they have some integration. I think do some
Auto-lock.
auto lock, right? So auto lock also I think auto lock and sidecar container quite similar. Auto lock is more kind of on the application side because they do some, I think, monkey patching or they do some changes to the underlying script. Sidecar container, I think, is kind of common way how it works in Kubernetes. But if we find some way which we can generalize, I think it was super helpful on all the things. But I don't know if there are any ways in Kubernetes without sidecars or daemon set to do these things, without, checking the logs to get this information on an application that you run.
Yeah, sidecar, it's clear, it's elegant in the way that you can have them injected without touching, but you still need something that contract, for example, that you shared, like that the runtime somewhat has to logs or has to follow some convention on how to print or whatever, expose the metrics, right? Which is almost like the most critical, well, the challenge there, that standardizing that part. That then almost the rest is implementation detail, how whether that's a sidecar or whatever. But the instrumentation of the runtime itself, like the training loop, the Python script, or that is to me. So autolog is one way where MLflow that does sometimes some monkey patching, or you call it explicitly, but ideally that would be made less, could I say, like more portable or less intrusive, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we don't have tracking issue yet for this, right? Like global problem I know we have some signals, right? Like this PR and trainer that we like the exploring. Status, right? I think you're talking about status of progressing tracking.
Or progress, yeah. Yeah, that's the PR that Abhijit created, and yeah, you can find.
Yeah, maybe we can, generalize this issue to remove how to export some, pull some metrics or get some results from train jobs.
I can try to have it updated in that way if you want. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's a great discussion. Let's definitely follow up on this. Like, I think it will be super interesting to see how if we find a way to kind of help folks to export this information from the application, because I think there is always upon the orchestration application, layers, they stay separate, and there is no way really for us, as a Kubernetes kind of orchestration layer to, intercept with those applications. So definitely need to think on this. Yeah, I know over time, so sorry about it. Like any last questions here, any follow-ups, next steps?
I have created a PR just right before this call to migrate the Python APIs from Kiteep SDK to new project. So whenever you have time, please review that so I could publish models to PyPy.
Yeah, absolutely. I will take a look. Thanks for this, Annie. Like, yeah, definitely we need to merge this and we need to make a release for KDE before we do this updates. Yeah, definitely, like, let's collect feedback on this cap. I probably will also move this to the proposals on the SDK, at least once we finalize this initial design thinking. And then I think we can move forward with the implementation if, we don't have any objections for this initial model, if that makes sense. Yeah, sounds great. Any last questions, comments? All right, great discussion, guys. Let's follow up. Really super exciting to see like this release happening before KubeCon. So looking forward to have this in place for our users. Thanks, everyone. Speak to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.